Today, I want to talk about LinkedIn optimization. When someone reaches out to me for help with their career, whether it's advice or they want help in a job search, the first thing I'll do is take a look at their LinkedIn and see what they need help with. And I can tell you firsthand, most people need help with their LinkedIn profile, so you are not alone. I'll talk today a little bit about the way that LinkedIn works, how to optimize, and why we should optimize your profile. Most people aren't aware of this, but LinkedIn is basically one giant search engine. Now, that's a dumbed down version. It's a recommendation engine. They're starting to use more complex AI, but at the end of the day, it's a giant search engine. So, as a job seeker, your mission is to optimize your profile with keywords and phrases that speak to your experience and speak to your target role. One of my favorite things about LinkedIn is that there's no page limit. With a resume, oftentimes you'll hear that you want to keep your resume to one page, which candidly I think is problematic in itself. We'll talk about that another day. But I do love that LinkedIn doesn't have that restriction. It certainly doesn't need to be 30 scrolls long, but the advantage to keeping lots of detail on your page is that your SEO will be more effective. While LinkedIn actually has a lot of really cool features now, like open to work, where you can signify what type of roles you're targeting, I'm just going to walk you through some of the more basic things that you can do to become more discoverable and increase your likelihood of locking down interviews. First, titles do matter to a degree. If your company has a weird naming convention that isn't an industry standard or doesn't signify what you do, you can add that as a second title in parentheses, and that will solve the problem. And as you look at each role that you've had, think about the key components of your work as it relates to keywords. So, in product management, as an example, you'll want to use words like product roadmap, product strategy, concept to launch. If you're in sales, you'll want to use words like quota attainment or exceeded quota, go to market strategy. And if you're a GM or in a divisional leadership role, you'll want to include things like P&L owner, market strategy, executive leadership. And there are a couple key points just within that. First, use industry, or rather use standard terms that can be used across numerous industries, as well as industry specific terms. So that will attract profile seekers both in and out of your industry. Second, go look up jobs, and this part is very important. Look up jobs that align with your ideal next career step and look at the keywords that you see over and over again in these listings. Does your profile include those terms? Now, don't make things up that you've not done before. But if you see that all VP of marketing roles in your industry list demand generation, you better go get some demand generation experience or include any experience that you have relating to demand gen. You could even include worked with demand gen or worked with demand generation, supported demand generation. And the reason that we'd want to do that is, again, so that keyword is there. And once people read your profile, they'll understand that you don't have that deep experience, but you don't want to exclude yourself from a search if they're using that as a key term. Next, how are you talking about the work that you've done? Does your resume or your LinkedIn profile read like a list of tasks or like a list of accomplishments? Did you literally copy and paste the job description that you were hired with and paste it into your LinkedIn? I've definitely seen that before, and I'll ask this one thing, please don't do that. Your resume and your LinkedIn really should read like a list of accomplishments, not a list of tasks. There's a formula that Google recruiters look for. It goes accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. And I'll talk more about that and how to use it. I really like that formula, but I will go one step further. And I'll say, take a minute to marinate on each role that you've had and ask yourself, what did you really love doing? What are you really, really proud of from that time? If you want to do more of that, talk about those achievements. If something that you achieved has made you into who you are today and will tell us that you'll be successful at the next step, talk about those things, ideally using that XYZ formula. So an example of that formula would be, again, we'll go back to product. Led a team of 3 product directors to launch the most successful product in the product suite with 5 million daily active users by building a product roadmap that more closely aligned with our product strategy. So not only did I hit accomplished X measured by Y by doing Z, but I'm also talking about the number of people in my team, which we'll talk about in a minute, as well as using some industry key terms or some industry agnostic key terms such as product roadmap and product strategy. If you're a leader, talk about your teams. I want to know how many people you've led and what you led them to achieve. If you have a larger organization, be clear about your direct org, which means people directly reporting to you, and indirect org. It's also very important for you to talk about your leadership style. So there are 2 places where you really can't be ambiguous on your LinkedIn profile. It's leadership and sales. As we talk about sales, there are really 5 things that I want to see for every single salesperson's profile that I look at. The first is, what product are you selling? Be specific. Is it a software as a service? Is it a product suite? Is it a physical product? Be very clear about that. Number 2, who are you selling to? So what industry? What's the company size you're selling to? Number 3, who are the decision makers in that sale? Please do not just write selling to the C-suite. It's not helpful because I don't know if you're selling to the CFO, the CTO, or the CPO. So be clear about who you're selling to specifically, even if it's within the C-suite. And number 4, the numbers, annual quota, average deal size, sales cycle. If you have numbers, list them. Everybody wants a data-driven salesperson. And the last one, of course, in sales is performance. If you're not talking about how you're exceeding quota or how you're receiving sales awards or hitting club, people will assume you're not doing any of that. Lastly, promotions. If you were at the same company for 10 years and you simply listed your most recent title on your LinkedIn profile, people will assume that you're stagnating in your career. So make sure to list all 4 of those promotions, each of the roles, what you did in each of those roles, and you can speak to the promotions if you've got the space and if you feel like it's relevant. But we want to see that you've had career growth. I know I said last thing, but I will add one more, which is short stints. Most people have them, 1 short stint, sometimes 2 or 3, but nobody really wants to talk about them. They want to kind of brush it under the rug. And instead, I'd rather see people call out why they left those roles. So my best advice is to write in plain English why you had any roles that I would say are under 2 years. List the reason that you left. This might be, it was a layoff. It might be that your company asked you to relocate. Whatever the reason, it's better for you to list that reason than for people to wonder. So now that you have those tips, go through your entire profile. I'd say for the last 10 to 15 years, go through each of those roles, update using the tips that I've given you today, and a couple of things will happen. 1, when recruiters or hiring managers are searching for candidates, you're going to start coming up in their searches. Number 2, when you apply for the right roles, you're going to get much, much more engagement. 3, LinkedIn's actually going to start showing you jobs that are a good fit for your career without you having to do anything. Again, the beauty of LinkedIn is that it really is a recommendation engine, but it needs the right data in order to recommend the right roles. So feed the machine with the right keywords and clearly list your accomplishments on your profile, and you should be booked with interviews in no time.